Hey guys, on this episode we're going to be talking about what you need in order to upgrade your car's sound system. Now, I recently went through this process having never done it before, having no idea what I needed to do, and I found out that it was relatively easy, relatively simple. So I just wanted to run through exactly what you need, how do you install it, what you do. You don't need a shop to do it, you can do it yourself, it's not that complicated. So, first off, I just wanted to talk about your old sound system. These are some of the speakers in my old car, and you can see they're quite small relative to my hand. These are 3.5-inch speakers, pretty much the smallest speakers you can buy. Pitiful. They gave out crappy quality sound. When the volume was set too high, they would hiss and they would crackle. Terrible. So I knew I had to upgrade my system, and I needed different components that we're going to talk about to get the best quality sound for the best price value. So let's get rid of these and talk about here, what exactly do you need? The first thing, most likely you need to upgrade your head unit. This is the control that you see in the car. We'll look at mine in particular, and this is the thing that plays the music. This is the thing where you load in your songs, you can connect to the radio, and this controls the sound output to your speakers. So we need probably an aftermarket head unit. You can get tons of different aftermarket head units. We'll show you mine in particular. A wiring harness adapter. So this is not specific to your particular model, but specific to your particular brand of car. So because I have a Toyota, I bought a Toyota wiring harness adapter, and this just helps wiring your head unit to the wiring of the chassis of the car. You still have to do work yourself. I have a picture of mine here. So you still have to wire them individually yourself, but it just has those connectors to make your life easier when you're actually installing your head unit. New speakers. As you can see with my old speakers, I desperately needed to upgrade to something bigger that could handle more power. An amplifier. This is something that my car did not have. And an amplifier is something you need if you want to get good quality sound out of your head unit. Your head unit by itself can only power your speakers by so much. You can't produce enough power at a good quality level to play those speakers at a high enough volume that you really want. So you need an amplifier, and we'll show you mine and sort of how I wired it. You can or cannot, you don't have to add a subwoofer if you don't want. I haven't yet. If you really like that heavy bass, you can add a subwoofer as well. We can talk about where we can put the subwoofers and what you need. Last thing, you need lots of wires. So if you look at my wall of wires here, I have every type of gauge. The most common gauges that I used was 14 and 18. 14 for the bigger things, the bigger speakers, the higher power stuff, and 18 for the smaller tweeters and sort of the signal connectors. So lots of wires. Now let's get to my particular installation and talk about sort of what you need to do and how easy it was. So first things first, if you're going to be changing your speakers, in particular if you're going to be upgrading to a larger speaker size, you need to make sure they fit somewhere. So in this particular car, which is a Toyota MR2, it has 4-inch speakers at the front. There's two, one on each side. I kept those. 4 inches is a decent size. Those two 3.5-inch speakers actually installed, up in the corners at the back here. You can actually see the speaker assembly. New speakers of a larger size weren't going to fit there. So in my particular car, what I did is installed them in the doors. These are 6.5-inch speakers. They're actually a 2-component speaker. This is for the lower, this is the woofer for the lower frequencies, and then it has a tweeter for the higher frequencies. And you can see here I installed these in the air vent. So you have to get a little bit creative sometimes. But we have one in each door, as you can see on the other side as well. And you can see the tweeter there installed in the air vent. So depending on your particular vehicle, you may or may not have to cut holes in your doors to mount larger speakers, but in my particular case, this was the most time-consuming part of the entire installation, actually. The next step here is to get a new head unit. So the original head unit was a double din. Again, this car is from the 1980s, so it had a cassette player. Obviously I needed to upgrade this, so I went with a Pioneer unit. The really cool thing is you can see the USB sticking out. This can play songs directly off a USB. And so, when installing this head unit, you have to get that, or you don't have to, but it's nice to get that wiring harness adapter, which I showed before. And that just makes it, sort of plug and play with this head unit and the chassis wiring of the car. So, head unit, wire harness adapter, new speakers. What's the next step? Well, let's go take a look. So, because these speakers in particular are two-component, they actually separate the woofer from the tweeter. There's actually a rectifier board which you need to mount and wire. And so you can see here, as part of my rewiring project, I have a wiring board underneath the glove compartment, and those two yellow boxes are the rectifiers for the two-component speakers. So we have the power and signal coming from the amplifier and then being split between the tweeter and the woofer. You can get multi-component speakers where you have the tweeter and the woofer combined, and that's the same ones we have in the 4-inch installed in the front, and so I don't have to have the rectifier boards for those. But I just decided to go with these. It was a good price point, they had good reviews, so I went with that. This makes the wiring a little bit more complicated, but in the end, not a huge deal. So, what do we have to do here? Well, we have the head unit, and this sends the signals through RCA cables, through the wiring, down to the amplifier, which is mounted below the passenger seat. So I'll show you some pictures of that, and also talk about what we have to do to mount it, and how we wire it. So we get the signals from RCA cables to the amplifier, then the amplifier sends those amplified signals to the speakers themselves directly, or to these component boards, and then those split the signals to the particular speakers in general. But that's all really the wiring that we need. We have RCA with sound signal, and then power signals coming from the amplifier to the speakers themselves. If we actually take a look at the amplifier, so you can see here, this is a very large amplifier. It's pretty much the entire length of the seat, and it's quite heavy, but this was a 5-component amplifier, so that means it can control 4 speakers and a subwoofer. You can get amplifiers that can control, only one channel. That's for a single subwoofer, or you can get 4-component ones which can control 4 speakers but not a sub. It's really up to you, but I wanted to go with the 5-component because then I only had to have 1 amp for everything, for all my needs. So you can see here, these are the component signals going to the speakers. We also have a power wire, which is the red wire that's powering this amplifier, a ground wire which goes to the chassis underneath this panel here, and this blue wire is the signal from the head unit to tell the amplifier to turn on. So the biggest challenge of with amplifiers is mounting it somewhere securely. So I mounted this with straps. I have a hook points which I've just drilled straight through the floor pan and put these hook points in, and then strapped it all down, and mounted this nice and securely so this doesn't move around. But that's the biggest challenge for the amplifier. Wiring it is not a huge deal as long as you have the wires sorted out nicely. You want to try and use these little sort of sticker tabs to keep tracks on which wire goes to which speaker. But that's really it. New speakers, new amplifier, new head unit, and a ton of wiring, and you're good to go. You can get a shop to do this, or you can do it yourself like I did, and it sounds great and it works great. The next step is adding a subwoofer. As you can see, this cabin is quite small, I don't have anywhere to put that sub, so I might have to put it in the trunk. But when I add it, I can just add it to the channel, you know, the 5th channel for this amplifier, and just have 2 more cables coming out, and there you go, extra subwoofer. So good luck on your sound system install and upgrade, and as always, have fun and good luck.